As much as I love the Hunger Games series and have enjoyed each reread and rewatch, there are always those little things that don't sit well, as if they're not logical or don't make sense based upon the info we have. Of course, when you love a series this much, you kind of learn to ignore those things or develop personal headcanons to justify them, right? But one of those parts that bothered me was the fact that Snow was completely hyper-focused on Katniss, so much so that he missed some serious red flags with Coin. Now, how could a man that smart, that cunning, with that much power and a serious keen eye get so lost in his hyper-fixation on a teenager, albeit a highly influential one, that he misses the threat of Coin, which ultimately leads to his downfall? Coriolanus Snow, in the words of Finnick Odair, was so young when he rose to power, and incredibly clever to keep it. Judging from the ending of the prequel, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, we can guess it was maybe just a couple of years following his mentorship of the 10th Annual Games and his few months as a peacekeeper in District 12 that he officially made his rise, making him roughly 20 to 21 years old. Once we get to Mockingjay, we are looking at post-75th Hunger Games, making Snow's reign up to 63 years. And Snow himself, 83 years old, but certainly not showing any signs of senility. That's actually entirely believable, the part about his mental state versus his age, as my grandparents are 87 and no worse for the wear. Of course, they're the exceptions based on the current state of affairs. In 6+ decades, I'm sure Snow saw his fair share of uprisings, wannabe rebels and rebellions, and battled any hint of betrayal to the system as he thought it should be. We know this actually due to his weapon of choice, poison. His wisdom and knowledge in this area would be quite strong, and yet, his downfall is his focus on a 16-17-year-old girl. Sure, it's more than that, but it still begs the question of how he could be so naive when it came to Coin. He and Katniss are incredibly similar. See one of my previous videos for an in-depth look at this. And Katniss saw through Coin right away. Why didn't Snow? Even if he didn't know too much about District 13's survival, and I'm sure he knew some things, just the fact that they have their own leader who was super quick to use Katniss's death to their advantage should have set off alarm bells. But it didn't. Why? Arrogance might be your first response. It was mine for a long time as well. And frankly, just looking at the trilogy and what knowledge we have about Snow from that, it seems his own pride is the clear answer. He was so sure of his power and his regime that he could afford to be a little silly by being fascinated with the fire Katniss sparked. He had it all under control. What she had done would end up being an inconvenience more than anything. Heck, he maybe even enjoyed the game by the end of it, again, being so sure that he would win. But this theory does not explain why Snow takes such a serious tone with Katniss, and everyone else for that matter, or why his efforts to thwart the rebellion are so strong. You might argue that it would be obvious for Snow to answer back so strongly, but still that implies he saw the rebellion as a credible threat. I'm not claiming there was no arrogance or pride involved at all, we know there was. What I am saying is it simply doesn't account for everything we know from the trilogy. But they are all written from Katniss's perspective. So for a long time we had to accept that, at least on this matter, it was all we would ever know about Snow and his downfall. That was until May of 2020 with the release of The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. A prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy, it focused entirely on a young Coriolanus Snow, his childhood, his traumas, his hardships, his raw personality, his development into becoming who we know in the trilogy. I was one of the few who loved this book, many on YouTube seem to feel otherwise, and thought it was incredibly well done. It added more lore without becoming invasive of the world we knew. It certainly answered questions such as, what were the first games like? When did mentors come into play? Were they always such a big spectacle? However, the thing about the questions listed is that they were no more than lingering thoughts from the trilogy. Nothing that we just had to know more about, but is rather added lore. Not crucial to the plot of the trilogy. Fun to learn, but not necessary either. Yet, when you ask why a man as cunning and smart as Snow would fall so easily in Mockingjay, practically the entirety of the prequel answers this. And it answers it in the form of a person, Lucy Gray Baird. Yes, I believe Coriolanus' relationship with Lucy Gray is the core of why he ultimately lost to the rebellion 65 years after his games as a mentor, why he missed Coin's red flags, why he became so caught up in this childish game of watching Katniss. He was beyond fascinated by her, because Katniss, in so many ways, is Lucy Gray. I plan on making a full comparison video between Lucy Gray and Katniss in the future, but for now, suffice it to say that their spirits, if you will, line up quite well. The differences are clear, and that mostly has to do with their families and upbringing, but again, that's for a future video. Considering how much Katniss resembles Lucy Gray in appearance, fighting spirit, tenacity, desire for independence and freedom, willingness to speak up, singing voice, and fire, not to mention that she even sung a song Lucy Gray wrote herself and very few ever heard, suggesting a bond between them, my guess is through Maud Ivory, it's natural that this would capture Snow's attention, captivate him even, but that is still not enough on its own. Lucy Gray wasn't just anyone. She left, you might say, an indelible mark on Coriolanus. His relationship with her, and ultimately how they parted, would leave a permanent mark or stain on his mind, heart, and personhood forever. Even though many factors contributed to Snow's changes and revealing of his true self in his late teens, Lucy Gray was the biggest one. Their story finalized the Snow we know of the trilogy. She made him crazy, or rather, made his crazy impossible to hide. Hence, even after over 60 years, having a young woman appear like Katniss would be too much for him. Even in his maturation and years of wisdom, Katniss unlocked what he had hidden away his whole life, only once ever being previously unlocked by Lucy Gray, and he was undone. That prequel book gave us everything we needed to know about Snow's hubris, which is his desire for control, more specifically the fact that he never had control over one special young lady, Lucy Gray. And you know who else he couldn't control? Another similar special lady, one who was far too much like the one who got away, and drove him to a madness that never truly left, but was contained. Someone he already knew the name of from his time in District 12, Katniss. There was no winning after that. It's crazy how after all these years, there's still so much to unpack and explore in the series. Of course, adding a 500-page prequel book about one of the main characters from the trilogy will do that too. But as previously stated, one of the best things about Ballad is that it added so much lore to the series without feeling invasive, or as if Suzanne Collins was pacifying fans, adding lore for lore's sake. She said it herself. She wrote the book because she had more to say. I respect that. And as someone who loves talking about the series, I really love that. Still, we will never fully comprehend what makes Snow tick. We have the background and the history, and yet it baffles me that Lucy Gray couldn't influence him enough, instead pushing him the other direction. But it makes for a fantastic story and character line, doesn't it? Thank you all so much for watching this video. Let's continue the discussion down in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, consider giving it a thumbs up and joining the Geekdom by subscribing. In addition to the Hunger Games, I also talk about The Legend of Zelda and Animal Crossing. I stream typically 2 days a week, Fridays and Sundays, with Sundays being a community stream. It's a real good time if you want to check it out. Massive thank you to all my patrons who support the channel and help keep it going, especially my champions in the Hylian Knight tier, Joking Batman, Geek Mom, McToppler, and Lorulian Sheep. But anyway, that's all for today. Thank you for watching, and may the odds be ever in your favor.